Hey, today I thought it'd be a good idea just to walk you through the steps that led to my diagnosis. Um, as I've said before, I've got inclusion body myositis, and it took me a long time to figure out that was what was going on. My body was failing me, but I want to walk you guys through the steps in case that helps someone else that might be early on in this process and wondering what to do, who to go to. So I'm just going to share my story. A little context or backstory is for most of my adult life, I lifted weights very consistently, um, even starting in high school and high school athletics and just lifting in the off season. Um, that carried through for the most part in my adult life. I just found that I really liked lifting. I got into a good routine, made good progress. I knew where my max were, and I felt like that actually was very important for me to really understand how bad my body was declining. Without that, I think there's also some stubbornness that I had in this process where also age, it was right around the time I turned 40, and I was like, man, getting old is tough. Not realizing that there's something more serious going on other than just aging. um, my strength plummeted. um, I've watched some other similar YouTube videos of people sharing their story, and I was very similar. um, I could no longer do push-ups. I was used to putting a bit of weight on the rack bar and doing squats and front squats and deadlifts, and I just reached the point where I couldn't even do it with the bar. And it was a slow progression down initially. I would say for a good 2 years, I was like, man, why is my tricep strength just not where it should be? Like, I didn't have an explanation. Why are my squats getting more difficult? My squat decline happened much more rapidly than my tricep decline. I don't know if that helps anybody else, but that's what happened with me. It went from not being able to do push-ups to like a sharp decline to not being able to do a squat at all with the bar, let alone any weight with the bar. So that was red flag number one. Amongst all that, I was traveling a lot for work, and I would say another red flag was I was just gassed just trying to go up steps. There was a lot of steps where I was traveling to, and constantly all day, and I was just gassed, and people are blowing by me. I know I'm getting older. I know I'm not in the best shape that I've been in, but it just seemed abnormal. And my back was also in a lot of pain. It seemed muscle related, like my muscles cramping, or just, it didn't seem joint or bone related. It just seemed like my muscles were just screaming at me with my back. And so it probably, I saw early signs maybe for 3 years. I saw the signs more heavily for 2 years. Stubbornness and busyness in work probably didn't help me not drag my feet, but I did. And so finally, in the summer of 2019, I decided to go to the doctor. And I saw my general practitioner, and I told him what was going on, and he referred me to a spine specialist. I think at first I thought maybe something was wrong with my spine that was causing the back pain. I forgot to mention this. One of my inner calf muscles just kind of disappeared on me. And so maybe I was thinking at the time that there was some nerve impingement that was cutting off something going to that muscle group, and that was also the reason for the back pain. I went to the spine specialist summer of 2019, full spine MRI, and it all checked out. It all looked great. Slight wear of age, which was completely normal, but the spine specialist said, Mike, your back's good. And at that point, he said, it would probably be good to see a neurologist. I went back to my general practitioner. He referred me to a neurologist in town, and I went there and did all sorts of tests and blood work that are normal for everyone that's going through some sort of myositis. The big thing to be checking for is your CK, creatine kinase, I think it's pronounced. That's protein breakdown in your bloodstream, and specifically muscle protein breakdown. And that was through the roof for me. I think if I recall, it was maybe in the 1500s, maybe 1200s. This is back in 2019, so it's 2024 right now, and I'm having to go back and rely on my memory. But it was between 1200 and 1500 with my CK levels. Did a nerve conduction study, EMG test to test your muscles. I might be mixing up the terms here, but they both tested my nerve response to engage my muscles to see how that was working, as well as my muscle contraction response, and that's where they listen, to how your muscles are contracting. At the time, mine weren't so bad. The neurologist was a little thrown off that it wasn't as bad as he was expecting. Yet, I have really high CK levels. So that was kind of good news when I went through those first test. He was surprised, and then we started talking. He started asking me questions about how I'm eating, supplementations, changes that have happened that might explain at all this change in my body. And we honed in pretty quickly on the timing of when I started cholesterol medicine. Those two things lined up. They lined up a little too well. And at the time, that was really great news that this could have started from my cholesterol medicine. It could have been a trigger. I'll come back to that more later. But that was great news. That was the best news I could have received. Hey, stop this cholesterol medicine. Maybe I'll get back on track. My CK levels will come down. My body will start bouncing back. So that was great. We continued to monitor my blood, my CK levels, and I think the next month they dropped down to 900, still very elevated. And maybe the month after, I can't recall, 700, 600. I'm not sure what that last test was. And at that point, my first neurologist said, I want you to go get checked out and get a second opinion from another neurologist. At this point, this is around fall of 2019. He referred me to some excellent doctors at UT Southwestern, and supposedly top notch. I certainly thought they were, in my experience. And it just took me a long time to actually go see them. He referred me in the fall. I don't think I made my appointment. They couldn't see me until March, so almost 6 months later. Did I actually go see them? And then at that point, that's full on COVID, March of 2020. That's when, at least in the US, that's when things were really, lockdown was starting. It started in Dallas. It was within the first 2 weeks of Dallas locking down and people staying at home. That's when I went to UT Southwestern and saw my second set of neurologists. Did all the same tests, blood tests, some additional genetic testing, the nerve conduction study, the EMG for my muscles, all the same things. But the results from my muscle testing and my nerve conduction, it was a bit worse at this point. And when blood work came back, my CK levels were still elevated. So one of the first things that the doctor said was, it's not your cholesterol medicine. I have more to give on that, but I'll leave it at that there. It's not your cholesterol medicine. You haven't been taking it. So that's not the only thing at play here. There's something more. So more genetic testing. And really, I exhausted all the testing that I could, except for two things. One was, there was one really expensive genetic test. All genetic tests came back negative. And that was another thankful moment. Hey, this isn't hereditary. My kids aren't potentially going to get this in the future. It's environmental, or something happened with me in my life that triggered this for me. So another good moment where I'm like, shoo, I'm thankful that I don't need to be concerned about my family with this, or that I'm not going to pass this down. That was good news. So I was left with two tests. One was a really expensive genetic test that insurance didn't cover, multiple thousands of dollars that I would need to pay out of pocket, or I could do a muscle biopsy. I thought about that for a bit. I'm not telling y'all what to do. I'm just sharing my experience. This isn't medical advice. I thought about the genetic test, and I thought I could spend a lot of money finding out if it's this last genetic test and still not be definitive. And at that point, I got settled. Let me take the biopsy, because the biopsy will tell me it should be more definitive, and I felt like at the time it would give me a better answer. And it did. It did. The muscle biopsy, I got those results back, I believe, in June of 2020. July of 2020. I got my surgery, I think, in June. I can't remember, middle, end of June. Got my results back beginning, middle of July, something like that. And it came back that I have inclusion body myositis. That is how I arrived at my diagnosis. The doctors told me on my birthday in August in 2020. Surprisingly, I felt like I took it really well. My wife did not. I'm not a psychiatrist or a therapist, but maybe I was in shock. Maybe I didn't fully understand how bad this would get at the time, but I remained to be pretty upbeat at that moment. I got more to share on that later. But when the doctors gave me the diagnosis, Mike, you have inclusion body myositis. Excuse me. There's no cure. There's no treatment. Do physical therapy and let us know how you're doing. And that was kind of it. I asked a little bit more questions, but that's basically the summary. And they did also say that I could explore clinical trials. Clinical trials happen all over the country and the world. Just, to stay up to date on the trials that I might be interested in, and to apply for them and see how that goes. I actually never ended up doing that. That's for another video on what I did end up doing that I will definitely share with you guys, but I just didn't feel like I was in the place to travel. And I also have to say that I did keep up with physical therapy, but I got very tired of checking in with the doctors just for me to tell them I'm doing worse, I'm doing worse, I'm doing worse, and them having really nothing to offer. And I'm not blaming them, but I just got tired of that process. It seemed pointless, and not putting my mental headspace in a good place. It was just a little bit demoralizing. Hey guys, I'm doing bad. I'm doing worse. Next month, hey, I'm doing worse, and that's it. So I got tired of doing that. That's it for this video. But through that muscle biopsy is how I arrived at my official diagnosis of inclusion body myositis. More to share with you all next time.